Hey, if you want to know how to scan your film in studio like I do with this setup, you will. So just keep watching this video. Great intro, Eric. I started shooting film in 2017 for personal reasons, photographing my family, but I was a noob and bought an expensive Leica like an idiot hipster does. And at that time, I always sent my film off to a lab like most people do. They Walter Whited that stuff and always shot me an email with a truckload of JPEGs of my out of focus, underexposed masterpieces. I continued that process until one fateful summer evening last year when I photographed a beautiful little small town in Wyoming. And having learned much more about film photography up until that point, I realized that the scans I got back from that lab didn't really show off the dynamic range and protecting the highlights in the image like I knew film was capable of doing. So Mike and I had an idea. And by that, I mean Mike had an idea. We were going to learn how to process and scan our own film in studio. And by that, I mean he was going to learn how to process and scan our own film in studio, and then teach my dumb self how to do it as well. So through a few simple days of research, Mike bought all the equipment that we thought we needed, and we got to processing and we got to scanning. Now the developing side of film photography is pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna get to it in this video, but we will be doing a step-by-step process video of how to use all the developer and the Blix and all those chemicals and stuff, exactly how you need to do it. So make sure you like and notified bell and subscribe to everything so you don't miss that one. In that process of learning, we realized we needed a light bed to put the negative over so that we could photograph it with a camera and then use software in Lightroom to convert the negative to a positive. So we did a janky version of that process our first go at it. Now, if you follow me on YouTube, you saw that video when we processed and scanned all that film that we shot in Wyoming and Montana from that same trip, just with a lot of janky equipment and like a cheap light bed and a Trader Joe's paper bag to block out the light so that we weren't getting any discoloration and light bleeding from the light bed on our film scans. After that point, we did a bit more research and found a company called Negative Supply, which brings us to today and our full setup for scanning. We ended up buying the Negative Supply camera stand so that we could get a perfect 90-degree angle of our camera photographing the negative on the light bed. Instead of a flatbed scanner, you can get a much higher res image, especially with a camera like the Fujifilm GFX 50S, which is a medium format camera. Do you need a camera like this to photograph your film negatives? Absolutely not. Mike already had this camera and we were like, well, if we have it, we might as well use it and get crazy high quality and high resolution. And this process is also much faster than scanning on a flatbed just because you can fire off a frame, switch to the next negative, fire off a frame, switch, fire, switch, fire, switch. Now, if you're already a digital photographer, you could use your DSLR, you could use your mirrorless camera. We chose to get a lens converter and a macro lens for the GFX so that we could fill the frame with our image and fill the negative in most of the frame, giving us the highest resolution possible. You could shoot with another lens, but it's more advantageous to shoot with a macro lens. So you have that 90-degree pitch straight down into the light bed with the negative being brought right over through Negative Supply's film carrier. So we bought this guy. This is the 35mm film carrier by Negative Supply, and you can see that little window where it fits exactly in the size of 35mm. So you're shooting straight down into this thing with the light bed shining through so that you get a flat lay of the film being scanned across. And then it has an advance lever right here. So as soon as you put it through, you advance it with this lever and it pulls the film all the way through the carrier. So all of that stuff was bought with our own money, the stand and the carrier and our own light bed. Something we bought separately to put within the film carrier is the full border setup. It's an attachment that you put inside of the film carrier so you can get those cool notches in the actual film. You could see the sprocket holes instead of it being cut off, which is a vibe and really fun. Now we bought all of that gear with our own money. We loved it so much that we actually connected with Negative Supply. I got a DM from them on Twitter saying they might want to partner on something, and I was like, heck yeah. So they sent some gear. They sent us this 35mm lens hood, which actually goes on right here. You can zoom out a little bit, Mike. Whoop! Oh, whoa. This part right here. This film hood goes right over the film carrier and creates like a black tunnel for the lens to fit inside. You can photograph your negatives in daylight and you don't have to worry about light bleed. Instead, we a lot of the time just do our negatives in a dark room, so that's not really a problem, but we probably will start integrating that just to be double sure. They also sent us their light bed. Zoom back in. Whoop. They sent us a ProLight CRI $95. It's really bright. It's way better than the one we bought. That was way cheaper. Mike has done a fair bit more scanning than I have and run a lot more tests, and he's run every single aperture on this lens into this setup, and he has come to the conclusion that f8 is the sharpest aperture. So this light bed gives us the ability to shoot at f8 with shooting at a shutter speed of like 1/40, which is awesome. And then they sent us the thing we're most excited about, which is the 120 film carrier. I got the Hasselblad 500cm gifted to me. Mike has a Mamiya 6. These are 120 film cameras, medium format cameras, and clearly medium format is a much larger size film negative than 35. Let me show you. This is 120 film, and these are 35. You can see it's about twice the size, so clearly it wouldn't fit in the 35mm film carrier. Therefore, you need an entirely different film carrier for the 120 film. They just came out with a 120 carrier, and it is epic. Guys, this gear is so solid. It's just full metal. It's like so hefty. This thing is not gonna break even if you drop it. Same thing, it has the dial on it like the 35. It has the same duster that comes with it. And the beautiful thing about this is that the clasp is incredible for helping it lay flat across. But they have these inserts that go in. So the different types of medium format, the different types of 120 film that your camera does can fit within this and not have any light leaks. So here we have a 645 insert. They have a 6x6 insert, like for my Hasselblad or for the Mamiya 6. And they have a more panoramic view as well, 2 forms of panoramic as well, which is just amazing. You have all these options, and the whole round of scanning that we've done in this last batch have just come out so crisp, so clean, so sharp, and the process is just so easy. This thing makes it so fast. It's far better, far superior than the janky one we had before it. So thank you, Negative Supply, for sending this, and onto the digital conversion part of the process. The last part to me is one of the most exciting parts. It's converting the negative to a positive. So you have all the scans that are tethered straight into your computer going into Lightroom. You need to look into the Lightroom plugin that Fuji makes for the tethered capture that you can do straight into your computer. So we just run it through this box and USB-C right into the computer, right into Lightroom. So every time I hit the shutter in Lightroom, it triggers the camera to take a photo of the negative and just dumps it right into Lightroom. As soon as all of the negatives are scanned and brought into Lightroom, I can white balance all of them by clicking the white part of the frame that's just outside of the 6x6, for example, on my Hasselblad 500cm. And I can copy and paste that white balance across that whole set. I can crop each frame individually to get it to the 6x6 format or 645, whatever format you're shooting. And then I can batch convert that entire set with a plugin for $100 called Negative Lab Pro. In Negative Lab Pro, you have a multitude of options to edit, and it's definitely a bit more nuanced and different than Lightroom. You have to get kind of used to all of the different settings, but what we've come to realize is photographing your negative really bright can really help with saving all of the detail you need to with the film scan. So if you have blown highlights, you can recover those highlights within Negative Lab Pro. You can adjust the brightness drastically, contrast, color, midtones, highlights. You can even convert in different formats. There's all sorts of options to tailor fit whatever you want for your images. So after that process is done, if I don't feel like I've converted it well enough within the software, I can actually turn it into a TIFF file and edit it almost as if it's a raw digital photo. And that's usually the last tweak that I'll make before exporting those frames and uploading those spicy hits to IG, baby, and Twitter. They do vertical now. Sick. You know, the reason I got into film photography is I didn't want to do any editing. I just wanted to send it off to a lab and get it back. And part of me still wants to do that. Like, I can if I want to. That's still an option. Like, if I don't want to go through the process of actually processing and scanning all of it, I don't have to, but I actually love having the control, especially when the lab does something that isn't really based on your preferences. And it's just a really fun way to be in community with your friends if you can do it with other people. So we've kind of dedicated this day once a month where we just process and scan all together in our studio. So it's a 3 to 4 person job, and we just dump all of the film that we shot over the past month, and we just have this day where we blast music, we open the windows, and we get to developing and scanning. And it's super cool. We just share in the fun of seeing all of our images come to life and remembering all the things that we experienced over the past month. If any and all of this was interesting to you, thank you for watching. Go check out Negative Supply. Thank you so much to them for sending this stuff to us to have. We're so grateful. We love your products. And yeah, I'll link them down below. If you liked it, make sure to smash like, subscribe to the channel. Till next time, lean into what makes you different. Peace, squad fam. Later. Bye.